Okay, welcome to WE, that stands for West East, Bicoastal Poets of the Pandemic and Beyond. I'm Lynn McGee, and my co-hosts are Susana H. Case, William Mohr, and Carolyne Wright. Madeleine Barnes is our tech goddess, who will screen share images during the reading and put into the chat column the featured poets' bios and links to buy their books. I want to mention that this reading is our last reading with our co-host from the West Coast. And I like the way that sounds, co-host from the West Coast, William Mohr, AKA Bill Mohr. He's stepping down, but he has generously offered to continue as our tech sponsor and a special friend of the series, which we appreciate. So he's actually not going very far. I want to also share that poet and trailblazing poetry citizen, Sandy Yanone, is joining our series as a West Coast co-host, and we are very grateful for that as well. So tonight we are excited to present the wildly talented poets Kim Addonizio, Suzanne Cleary, Gary Copeland Lilley, and Beth Ruscio. This lineup is pretty amazing. I'm really blown away by being able to bring these 4 poets together from all over the country. We're very excited about that. I'm very excited to hear them read their work. Each poet's going to read for 12 to 15 minutes-ish. And if you follow the chat column, you can learn more about them. And you can also comment on the poets and their work as you're hearing them read. And we'll save the chat column and they can always look at it later. So I know some people don't like the chat column, and we were talking about that earlier, but for other people, it's kind of a documented show of love for the poets. So let's get started. Please welcome my West Coast poets of the pandemic.
Uh-oh, Lynn, you muted yourself too quickly. Uh-oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure at what
welcome.
point I did. Okay. So please welcome my West East Poets of the Pandemic and Beyond co-host Carolyne Wright, who will introduce our first poet. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And welcome. Welcome, everybody from so many corners of this country and the globe. And so I'm very happy to be here with you because I invited Gary Copeland Lilley and Kim Addonizio together because they had the wonderful facility of the fact that they play music together. So they are going to be a unit. So I'm going to introduce both of them. I'll start with Gary. I first met Gary Copeland Lilley when he was a visiting faculty member several years ago for the Whidbey Writers Workshop, the Northwest Institute of Literary Arts low residency MFA program that I taught in for its entire 11-year existence. Gary was amazing. He was talking about blues and poetry. He had his wonderful North Carolina speech and laid back manner that I really appreciated. And he brought out his guitar and started singing and playing for us. So we hit it off. We had conversations at residency about poetry, the South, African-American poets and poetry, and also West African and Afro-Brazilian spiritual traditions and practices. So we were hitting a lot of notes together, which I appreciated. A few years later, in January 2016, Gary was back to the Whidbey residency and for the semester as a faculty member and my colleague in the program. Another poet had retired and he had joined us as the new poet. But alas, the residency was to be the last residency, the last semester, which was very disappointing. However, Christine Holbert of Lost Horse Press was also there, and Gary and Christine hit it off. And it all worked out. Gary had a manuscript and Christine loved it, and it was published by Lost Horse Press. And that is this, Gary's The Bushman's Medicine Show. And that information on this book will be in the chat. It's very blue. It's a wonderfully blue cover. And so what I said about that book at the time was it features the Bushman, who is a sort of an almost legendary character who is a sort of a conjurer out of the Pentecostal piney woods. And he basically practices shore leaves and haunts holding cells. He visits Mean Street malingerers and post-Hurricane Katrina lamentations. He defies Jim Crow, and he makes prayers for peace at the crosswords. So listen to the Bushman signify, sanctify, and call forth blessings from the ancestor spirits with his guitar that brought him home. So that is Gary. Now, I also have a past with Kim, who I first met. I don't know if you remember this, Kim, but we actually first met at the Virginia Center for Creative Arts back in, and the only reason I remember this is it was always at different places, but it was in 1994. I think we sort of sat at the same table once and kind of regarded each other and talked a little bit. And I think we both heard of each other. But a few years later, I was teaching her and Dorian Lux's book. Where did I put it? Here it is, The Poet's Companion, which is an almost legendary book now, and a text that everybody has used for poetry workshops of all levels. And I find it one of the most accessible books for bringing people into poetry. So I've used it many times. And then the next time I saw Kim was in 2002 at the Summer Literary Seminars Conference in St. Petersburg, Russia. And we had both gotten off airplanes and we were both kind of jet lagged. And that was a fun re-encounter. And then subsequent to that, I used Kim's book, Jimmy and Rita, which I have here, which was her second book of poetry, which is truly a novel in poetry with the two characters speaking and, the two voices, playing back and forth with each other and dealing with issues that are even more important these days, even more urgent, the issues of working class precarity, struggling with lousy jobs, poorly paid jobs, encounters with the law, addiction, homelessness, and other issues. So I think that it's a book that deals very directly with all kinds of social issues and political issues, but through the lives of these two characters. I have much more I could say about that, but recently I have been reading Kim's Now We're Getting Somewhere, which I love that title because it's very, it's kind of self-deprecatingly ironic. Where are we getting? It has a very sassy and self-deprecating tone to it, and it's reminiscent for me of Bukowski, Ginsberg, and even Sexton in the language. We managed to, she manages to get past the hopes and the manic afflatus of youth and realize that some things are destined to be ruined, including cheap dresses, student housing, self-esteem, and romantic projections. But the poet has wonderfully, hilarious and hair-raising imagery here. And her assessments of self and of society are very much worth hearing. And the other big treat, which I only realized fairly recently, was that Kim and Gary played the blues together. So that is what we are looking forward to hearing, as well as some of these poems. So take it away, Gary and Kim.
Is Gary here? I can't find him on the screens.
You guys see me now?
Oh, there you are. Okay, great.
Yeah, my computer dropped for just a second. I don't know what I missed.
Okay. I just
But
wanted to be able to see you for the little bit we're going to do together.
all right. So,
Yeah.
but we're here now.
Cool.
I'm here. I reappeared, you know. So I'm gonna start with well, I'm reading a bunch of new things a day. So, and I'm gonna share a poem that I put to music, and that's gonna be the lead in for me and Kim to do a song that we know by Ola Bell Reed and stuff. We'll start with the first poem is Prayer in 3 parts to see if God is listening. 1. If a power line of crows is called a murder, can a canopy of ravens be called a choir? Everyone wants the best, the good Googa Mooga. We cannot wait to make our own. We look to the hills for our help, O Lord, our strength and redeemer, our vaccinator. O Lord of the unemployed, is there shelter in a time of storm? 2. All things are activated through servitude, mercy, not just to others, but also to myself. Should not love inspire us all? Hard times swarm a nest of angry wasps. But when the good news comes, we sing hallelujahs. Can you feel me on that, dear God? Dear God, dear God, should I have to talk in tongues? 3. On the street corner across from the grocery store, is this how the Lord will rapture us away? Like a dazed man in sleep-wrinkled clothes at the temple steps waiting for Christ, and the sign he holds says it all, Lord, help me get through. A woman in blue passes him a bag of grapes through the window of a Fender Bass Subaru. Out of work waitress, rent due, barely making it, but they both reach towards each other like that, just like that. And next poem is called Ramble. It's also, this one is in 4 different parts. I don't have them numbered, I don't have them titled. I just have asterisks there. So I'll try to indicate where they are, you know. Ramble. Wound wart spreads into meadows and slides down hillsides like rambunctious children. The run together summer days, rural Carolina coast, swamp mosquitoes swarm, the dew, the tall grass. 2 months farm work, my uncle's shadeless fields, those calluses are long gone, but cat in the sun, look how old my hands are today. Branches of wrinkles, lattice work, around swollen knuckles, the fingernails chewed down to the quick. A man whose voice sounded like beer bottles being thrown in the road when he was home. His wife's voice was like dish fragments being swept across the kitchen floor. The jukebox, the girl I danced with at Hillcrest Gardens, we always did our wobble, the finger pop, the slide, the kick, our dirty Sandy Cross represent. We retired in different states, never stayed in touch, and she died last week. undisputed damn truth. You love your children and you work at town hall, where you are the janitor with the most seniority. But these days, that's where hope goes to get kicked in the ass. Your sugar name hasn't been in your wife's mouth for over a year, as you've been on the Home Depot lot job search. And you want to sex her up when you get home, but you roll down the unemployment highway, wondering whether it would be best to get hit by a car, like the 98 coupe sedan that's coming up fast behind you, screeching like a stimulus check. Or to manage a more certain exit, that 18-wheeler ramped up to 100 miles per hour on the straight, propelled by a trucker masticating a mouthful of opioids. Deprivation in the grocery afternoon. They robbed Blind-Eye Charlie in fucking daylight. Him carrying groceries, cornflakes, milk, butter and eggs, a mess of collards, and enough shrimp and lamb for 2 meals of curry. He loves Southern meals, so every day he cook. Say he's being in the kitchen, he don't think nothing about none. Had pound of basmati rice, pound bacon, a pound of red beans, and some hickory smoked turkey for that seasoning, bell peppers, red and green and yellow onions. He got caught looking down when 2 teenagers walk up. One shaking, he had the gun, so Charlie slowly set them bags down. He could see them both. Other one was chewing gum. You know Charlie done lived war, done run through jungle, being shot at and hit. And Gum Chew would tell him, give it up, motherfucker, and he did. That shit surprised them assholes. He dumped his pockets, no hesitation. Gum Chew with big scowls, but pick up the cash. Shaky Gun all tripped out at how easy it was. Asked, what do we do now? And Big Scowl stopped to think about it. That's when Charlie gets scared. That one eye get PTSD. Why? Because wasn't no blood yet. What they supposed to do then is just walk away. And here's the poem. I put the music, and like, Kim, please give me a sign. It just doesn't sound right. Well, I no longer trust the levees, but I want to believe in God. But I've been down to New Orleans, so I truly believe in blood. And the ghost of the lower night ward, Lord. Most of home been washed away. Not one stray dog is on the street. Muddy flowers in the graveyard. Pleasure boats ride the trees. I was searching for my God and I found this unholy flood. baptized. All the saints, they were drowning when those gators came to town. I was down in New Orleans, I was cleaning prayers from the flood, Lord. I see so much water destruction, devastation for all those souls. 2,000 people still missing. Drag the river for their bones. Oh God, drag the river for their bones. Drag the river for their bones.
Yeah. That was Gary.
Yeah,
I just want to say, if you lay back a little bit this time on the guitar, it's probably going to be a little bit better.
gotcha.
That was great, but when you do it too loud, because it's Zoom, it kind of distorts
Okay.
the sound.
That's what I was looking to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me just tune. This is my banjo. It's bigger than I am. So I'll just say that Gary and I were trying to figure out how we could do this together on Zoom, since we would cancel each other out if we tried to play at the same time. So this is a little thing that we hopefully worked out together. And this is the first time I've played banjo for anybody, because I just got given to me this year and I'm learning. So bear with us. This is kind of an experiment. So go ahead. I'm gonna start it off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over yonder in that graveyard where the wild flowers grow, oh, there they laid my true lover, gone from me forevermore. Fairer than the sweetest flower, stronger than the reckless wind, was with her love, bigger than an ocean, was the girl that I did win. And I left her there upon the mountain, beneath that little mound of clay. I left her there upon that mountain to seek my riches, my worldly gain. When I returned, no earthly treasure could ease this heart so full of pain. So there, so high upon the mountain, beneath that little mound of clay, oh, the girl I returned to marry, so still among the flowers she lay. And I'll go away and I will wander to my riches, my worldly gain. And I'll not leave here a man of riches, undone in sorrow I will remain. done in sorrow, I remain.
That's it.
Thank you.
Uh,
That's a song by Ola Belle Reed from the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina.
Okay, so I'm going to follow that with. I just want to say I'm really happy to be reading with my old friend Gary and everyone else, and thanks to everyone who made this happen. So I thought in honor of the music and the blues, I would start off with a couple poems from this earlier collection of this really, I don't know if you can see this, but this is my big, beautiful blues book that has some wonderful woodcuts in it of blues musicians, as well as some blues poems. It's called My Black Angel. And this one is called, oddly enough, Cigar Box Banjo. Blind Willie Johnson could coax music from a single string. God plucked a rib and found a woman. Concert aria in the gypsy song, long groan of orgasm in the first kiss, plastic bag of heroin ripening in the poppy fields. Right now, in a deep pocket of a politician's brain, a bad idea is traveling along an axon to make sure the future resembles a cobra rather than an ocarina. Still, there's hope in every cartoon bib above which a tiny, unfinished skull, in its beneficence, dispenses a drooling grin. The heart may be a trashy organ, but when it plucks its shiny banjo, I see blue wings in the rain. And one more from this book that I often do with harmonica, but I'm not going to do that today. One, just because I'm wearing lipstick, but I've been ignoring my harmonicas in favor of trying to learn the banjo. So I'll just read this blues for Robert Johnson, and it's in a blues form. Give me a pint of whiskey with a broken seal. Give me one more hour with a broken feel. I can't sleep again, and a black dog's on my trail. You're singing Hellhound, Crossroads, Love in Vain. You're singing and the black sky is playing rain. You're stomping your feet, shaking the window pane. I put my palm to the glass to get the cold. Drink the memories that scald. Drink to the loves that failed and failed. Look down into the river. I can see you there, looking down into the blue light of a woman's hair, saying to her, baby, dark on Catch Me Here. You're buried in Mississippi under a stone. You're buried and still singing under the ground, and the blues fell mama's child, tore me all upside, tore me all upside, tore me all upside down. And if you can see, there's a nice woodcut here of Robert Johnson. So Charles Jones was the artist who did that and actually suggested that we do a book together. And I'm going to go to this new collection called Now We're Getting Somewhere, which sometimes feels ironic and sometimes feels a little more hopeful than it used to. And I'll start out with a couple poems from the beginning. This is Night in the Castle. I'm not sure what to do about that scorpion twitching on the wall. Maybe I should slam it with this book of terrible poetry. Or just read aloud to it until it dies of a histrionic metaphor bleeding out on the ancient stones in a 5-octave aria. If I get a little drunker, I might try to murder it with my sandal. I gave up on mercy a while ago. That's what happens when you live in a castle on an artist's grant. You look at the late afternoon Umbrian light smearing itself over the tomato vines and feel entitled, like an underage duchess whose husband has finally died of gout. leaving her free for more secret liaisons with the court musician. She might even have poisoned the Duke, the lecherous shit. It's hard to remember what life was like before this, and I don't want to. I want to stay here and poison the king next. I want to be a feared and beloved queen, ordering up fresh linens and beheadings, locking up bad poets in their artisanal hair shirts, torturing academics with pornographic marionette performances. Meanwhile, the scorpion is still there, twitching slightly, reciting something about violence and the prison of ego. And I can hear the clashing armies on the wide lawn outside, sinking down into history and then standing up again. And this is called Black Hour Blues, also sort of a loose blues form. And the word black has a lot of, it's sort of like a magnet attracting lots of different filings. Sometimes it's racial, sometimes it's just the color, sometimes it's literal, sometimes it's fire or what's left after a fire, sometimes it's oil, but all black things. I think you'll pick it up and easily. And the other thing maybe to mention is that it's a name-checking poem somewhat, which I think a lot of poems of protest are. And it mentions the Ghost Ship, which was a place here in Oakland where a lot of young artists lived that was very substandard in terms of electrical wiring and things. And the city didn't do anything about it. The landlords didn't do anything about it. And there was a big fire and a lot of young artists died in that fire. And then the Grenfell Tower was a housing for, well, also not great housing, let's say, in the UK that also had a big fire. So Black Hour Blues. Nothing is the new Black's shit soundtrack. The elk's black blood leaks from the roof rack. Black the prospects of the destitute sick. Blackberries suppurate in the pie tin, green cards burnt black in the gas-lit oven, black mold loitering in the privacy of prison. Black Deepwater Horizon, pelican and dolphin, through standing rock a black worm crawls. Black Baltimore, Mali, Iraq, Sudan, Cambodia, Sinai, Selma, The darkling beetle raises its black back and runs through the black ghost ship and Grenfell Tower ruins. Black Syria, Somalia, Ferguson, Attica, Gaza, Yemen, Black heart weighed against an ostrich plume. Blindfolded goddess, long sword drawn, nowhere in the come down, come down. And this is about a little bit of Whitman that I actually love but argue with in this poem. And it's that beautiful section that goes, I think I could turn and live with animals. They are so placid and self-contained. I stand and look at them long and long, and goes on from there with this beautiful evocation. Animals. Oh, and the O in this is a circle, no H. Oh, Walt, you were wrong. They aren't placid or self-contained. I just watched a spoonbill make carpaccio out of a frog, and crocodiles dining on wildebeests trying to cross the Mohr River. It's wrong to say "oh" in poetry these days, which makes me want to have a loud orgasm right here in an unashamed animal way. You must have been looking at some cows on a farm, but who wants to live like that, standing around in a shed with sore tits, shitting claustrophobically, or standing around shitting and being tortured by flies and eating grass? I know you like grass, but it's no fun to be a pricey pre-hamburger ruminating with no TV. If you had a cable subscription, maybe you would have felt differently, watching Nat Geo Wild and those exhausted herds on the Serengeti. Walt, I still love you, even if this instance you might have been a victim of the pastoral tradition. Let me tell you about animals. The green anaconda swallowed the young capybara whole. Oh, 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 Walt! Capybaras are the largest rodents on Earth. I don't think I'd survive as an animal for long, even a large one. Look at the elephants. Imagine being murdered and becoming a doodad or furniture inlay. Walt, I actually like sweating and whining about my condition, hot flashing and bitching in my cream satin sheets, lying awake drunk and weeping in the dark. I'd definitely like to own more things. An electric knife sharpener, for instance, would come in handy for carving up the less fortunate on special holidays. I want to be lucky as long as I can. Walt, I don't think death is luckier or leads life forward like you said. I don't think I'm going to grow from the grass you love. I'm just going to have one last blackout in a dirty pink lace dress and be eaten by tiny, ugly, legless larvae. And this is a little turn on Dorothy Parker, who's one of my favorite poets, actually. And her poem Resume, razors pain you, rivers are damp, acids stain you, and drugs cause cramp, guns aren't lawful, nooses give, gas smells awful, you might as well live. So I turned that into a little drinking song called Resume, after Dorothy Parker. Families shame you, rehab's a scam, lovers drain you and don't give a damn. Friends are distracted, aging stinks. You'll soon be subtracted, you might as well drink. And I thought I would read this one called, again, in honor of the somewhat musical theme, this poem called Guitar. Sometimes it sleeps in its case all day like a stringed vampire. In the store down the streets, its friends are hanging like hams. Guitars, like hearts, can be anything. If you really want to break your lover's heart, it's simple. Just immerse yours in tepid water and walk out of the kitchen. Go call someone you always wanted and play them a song on your new guitar. Don't break your own guitar unless you happen to be a guitar god, in which case, go ahead and smash it with the impunity befitting a god. Also feel free to smash your chosen people while reminding them how much you love them. My guitar is often depressed because it takes itself seriously as the instrument of a few generations of sensitive singer-songwriters. The ukulele has lately grown in popularity, but a uke is so babyish. Playing it is like trying to placate a god by ritual murdering a sacrificial blankie. When my guitar is sad, it glows eloquently and goes berserk, thinking of light thinning in a hospital gown, and the sound of paper slippers on gray linoleum, like a voice being mopped off the tiles. A guitar, like a heart, has a hole in it. It heaves out its music like a twerking volcano, like a faucet leaking bluebells in a gutted house. Heart like the last red wolf in the decimated population of eastern North Carolina looking for a mate. Heart like a target, hole like an exit wound. Play on. And I'm going to do, I think, two more. This is called Archive of Recent Uncomfortable Emotions. This haircut makes me feel ugly feeling. The however much I drink I can't pretend it's love feeling. The strangled by the foul and ugly mists of vapors in iambic pentameter feeling. The everything I write is shit feeling. The I'm sorry I gave you those blowjobs and did you not understand the meaning of reciprocal feeling. The it's not my birthday anymore, I'm just older feeling. The looking at x-rays of my teeth feeling. The something died in your eyes and I can smell it feeling. The literary recognition might be just another shiny object feeling. The darkling, I listen and right now I think it would be kind of cool to die feeling. The Keats is dead feeling. The Leonard Cohen is dead feeling. The blank and my blank are also quite dead feeling. The I am Jean Reese getting blotto in a dismal room in Paris with black specks on the wall feeling. The maybe I'm just getting blotto feeling. The trees are no longer my friends feeling. The my friends are no longer my friends feeling. The once I was a 19th century Russian novel, but now I'm a frozen chicken entree feeling. The I can always return this feeling in the prepaid envelope provided feeling. The I am the prepaid envelope feeling. And I'll end with this one, which is the last one in the book. There are a few poems in here that are sort of just addressed to girls and young women with a dark turn of mind. This is called Stay. So your device has a low battery and seems to drain faster each day. Maybe you should double your medication. You might feel queasy, but also as if the spatula flattening you to the fry pan has lifted a little. So your breath comes out scorched, so what? Inside, trust me on this. There's a ribbon of beach by a lake. In the sand, fragments of a fossilized creature resembling a tulip. Back in the Paleozoic, online wasn't invented yet, so everyone had to wander alone and miserable through the volcanic wastes, or just glue themselves to a rock, hoping someone would pass by. Now you can sob to an image of your friend a continent away and be consoled. Please wait for the transmissions, however faint. Listen. When a stranger steps into the elevator with a bouquet of white roses not meant for you, they're meant for you. Thank you. I should say too that somebody just gave me white roses based on that poem, and another friend of mine who just had a serious accident, her friends gave her white roses in honor. So I thought that was just so beautiful that my words went out there and turned into like real roses out in the world. Thank you.
Oh God, that was so wonderful, Kim. Thank you. I love that so much. And Gary, hearing you play your music and both of you together is so beautiful. I feel so honored that you're reading for us. And this is such a special, we're very lucky. I'll just say that we're very, very lucky, all of us. I'm very happy to introduce the next poet. The first time I heard Suzanne Cleary read her work was in 2015 at Cornelia Street Cafe in the West Village. She signed my copy of Beauty Mark, which won her book, which won the John Ciardi Prize for Poetry. And as I read it on the train back to Brooklyn, I found myself in total agreement with what Dorianne Lau says about the work of Suzanne Cleary, what she refers to as an ability to sustain the elegant, energetic line. I think that's a really important moment, the elegant, energetic line. And if you don't know what she meant by that, you will soon. And I think that really nails it. It's a syntactical magic that supports the ambitious narrative of the poems of Suzanne Cleary, their surprising ability to evolve into something you didn't see coming. The content itself is surprising and quite memorable, but that is not what her first collection and her second, but the one that won the Ciardi Prize, Beauty Mark, according to Kevin Proofer, who selected it, he says, excuse me, it was the fine, complex, psychological intelligence at work in the collection. And I think he nailed it with that. You'll hear definitely the psychological intelligence trained on a whole new set of intriguing starting points in, here, I'm just going to hold the book up for a second, Crude Angel, which is Suzanne's latest book, with titles like I Have Never Slept with an Animal, My Father's Feet, and Gertrude Stein. In Crude Angel, this came out in 2018 from BKMK Press. Her other collections include Keeping Time and Trick Pair. Suzanne Cleary is one of my favorite poets, which is saying a lot because I read a lot of poetry and I try to buy so many books every year, as many as I can. I'm so impressed with so many people, and she is way up there for many reasons, for more reasons than I've already stated, and which will reveal themselves as she reads for us today. So please welcome Suzanne Cleary.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I am just thrilled to be reading today. And this is one of the most unusual readings I think I've ever been to, let alone been part of. So I'm extremely happy to be here. And I thank everyone involved with organizing it and with being here today in the audience, as well as reading. And special thanks to Lynn for inviting me. I'm really excited to be in, the West East reading series, Poets of the Pandemic and Beyond. So I thought I would start today by reading a poem about the great state of California. Actually, it's about a small windowless room in California, in Culver City, California, at the Sony Pictures studio, where I went on a tour a while ago. And this poem is called Dubbing Room. Excuse me. Dubbing Room. We crowd into the small booth, stare at the man kissing his arm, his mouth pressing the back of his hand so his loose fist bobs like the head of a baby nursing, sucking with furious instinct, its whole body gulping with pleasure. Unlike this professional whose pleasure we imagine the measured sigh of a job well done, this pucker and soft pull, this wetting the lips precisely so they will not chap as he works, with his one eye on the movie screen. Two actors, clothed only in pink light, lie on a beach, their kisses falling short of even the latest sound equipment. And so their kisses are supplied today as we watch. The tall, heavy-set man wears a plaid shirt, one sleeve rolled to the elbow. The kiss begins, it seems, not in his lips, but in his hand, lips responding to the rise and fall of his right hand, which he supports with his left for control, or maybe for comfort, to ease the ache in his right shoulder and the crook of his neck, although he may court pain to inform these kisses. For the actors seem full of sorrowful ardor, there in the Pacific's rising tide. He turns his hand over, now kissing the underside of his forearm, where the skin is petal smooth. I cannot turn away from him, despite the beautiful lovers, twice life-size on the movie screen, embracing in the lapping water. I stare at the man at the microphone, who leans forward with something like tenderness, but both more and less than tenderness. Memory's enactment of love's keen attention. He breathes deeply, slowly, makes small sounds in a language entirely spit and flesh. In the soundproof booth, where we can say anything, we stare and say nothing. If something is not real, does one feel more intensely? Why can we say nothing, not even to ourselves, as we watch what seems, although it is not, what it would be to each love ourselves and to stand thus before strangers, to roll up our sleeves and without fanfare or shame, get on with it. I am fascinated by performance art. where people, artists, do strange and sometimes dangerous things. I'm fascinated by the idea of it as much as the experience of it. But I also have this idea that these things that the performance artists do are things that each of us do, but we just do it like metaphorically. So that's where I got the idea for this poem, which I call Art and Life. And I won't identify for you as I'm reading each of the artists who do these things, but in the book, and it's in Crude Angel, in the book I do list each artist who really does this stuff. And so this poem is called Art and Life. Who among us has not pushed a block of ice through the streets of Mexico City? Who among us has not sat cross-legged on the floor while strangers snip away our clothes? Who among us has not smeared our body with chocolate? Who among us has not, for 27 years, painted the same glass of water on the same windowsill every morning from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m.? Who among us has not splayed our dominant hand, used a series of 20 knives to stab at the spaces between the fingers, taking a fresh knife for every stab that draws blood, and has not expounded upon this as comment upon mistakes of the past and mistakes of the present? Who among us has not willingly enclosed ourselves in a gallery with a wild coyote? Who among us has not extracted from a bodily orifice a long coil of paper upon which is written our response to a critic's harsh and stupid review? Who among us has not, more conventionally, hoisted a urinal onto a pedestal? Who among us has not shot ourselves in front of a crowd? That last line always makes me wonder if I maybe shouldn't have read the poem, you know, but it's done. I'm going to read two more poems, and this next poem is also about a type of performance, but a very, very different performance. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, when the scale of it was just becoming clear, newspapers kept writing about people mowed down by the virus, which of course is still happening, the mowed down part. And so this poem, which I wrote last April 2020, is called The Mowing Down. The prayer is to remember that mowing also means this: the lawnmower, the kind that runs on nothing but the power of one person, walking. To remember the soft chirr of silver blades and the little puffs of grass clippings sparkling as they rise, as they fall back through themselves, rise again. Someone follows behind with a rake, combs the clippings into piles, then lifts each pile with rake in one hand into a cloth bag that the first person now holds open. The prayer is to remember falling asleep to the sounds of our elderly neighbors working to the far edge of their yard, far edge of dusk, then walking back to their house together, although toward the end, there was nothing that I could hear of them, nor could pretend I knew of their long lives. And this is my last poem for today. In the past year, I've written a fair number of poems about the COVID-19 pandemic, which won't be over until it's over for everyone. This particular poem is for one of my former MFA poetry students, who's a fine person as well as a fine poet. His name is Russell Jackson, and this poem is for Russell Jackson. It's addressed to him, and the title is, "For the poet who writes to me while standing in line at CVS waiting for his mother's prescription." It's nothing that you flat out say, Russell, but your email reminds me that 6 months into pandemic, 5 months into quarantine, CVS remains open 24 hours, its harsh blue-white light steady, as nothing in nature is steady. Those long fluorescent bulbs still dive-bombing lumens so that midnight is bright as 8 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 2 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. You can see that I struggle to carry one thought to the next these long days. I spend hours on the internet, becoming expert on the height of actors from Hollywood's golden age, on the 25 cutest photos of 4-year-old Princess Charlotte. I now know that Elizabeth Bishop was a bit taller than I am, a bit heavier. Her clothes would be too big for me, as no doubt her shoes. Russell, what is it that supposedly concentrates the mind wonderfully? Samuel Johnson said it in Boswell's biography, which I have never read and never will. I know my limits. Lately, I think that I know little else worth knowing. My only advice for your poems, Russell, wash your hands for as long as it takes to sing Happy Birthday. Did you know that song's no longer copyrighted? 5 years ago, U.S. District Court Judge George H. King ruled Happy Birthday is public domain. The 1935 patent applied only to the melody and specific arrangements of the tune, but not to the actual song itself. When Judge King writes actual song, he means lyrics, but I hear him saying song is something beyond the reach of law, beyond reach of language. Song is like a kernel of light inside of things, steady. Russell, be like CVS. I don't know what this means, be like CVS. Russell, dare to say what doesn't make sense, then wait patiently to see the sense inside of it. Be like CVS. Be like the bewildering variety of toothpastes, decongestants, hair conditioners. Be like orange Velcro knee braces, like spools of pastel ribbon that hums, pulled across a scissor. Be like the aisle of bare shelves where the cleaning products stood, where the white metal shelves now display only how each shelf, with a simple, ingenious hook, fits into the frame. I'm telling you nothing that you don't already know, Russell. Be like whatever accepts the horrid light and shines in it. Be like the 8-ounce can of lightly salted cashews for which you are newly willing to pay $12.99 as you stand in line, waiting for the blue-gloved hands to hold out to you the small white bag, which is not for you, except in that you are the one who will carry it where it must go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. That was wonderful. And I want to say it's actually very appropriate that you read your poem about the performance artist, since the next poet and myself are coming to you from Los Angeles, which was the home base, of course, for High Performance Magazine, right? I reached back there. This is an issue from 1979. And Los Angeles is, of course, was the home base for one of the most transgressive performance artists of all, the late Bob Flanagan, who died of cystic fibrosis back in the mid-1990s. Several of the best poets in Los Angeles have also had at least one foot in the world of theater and film too, at some point in their lives. Suzanne Lummis and Jack Grapes have both written plays as well as acted, and Harry Northup is admired by directors such as Jonathan Demme, both for his acting as well as his poetry. The most recent poet-actress to emerge from the mutually adhesive art forms of theater and poetry is Beth Ruscio, who has had a long and distinguished career as an actress. I first saw her in the early 1980s at the Padua Hills Theater Festival and was very impressed with her acting. Her talent at submerging her personal identity into characters is certainly one of the skills that she has transferred into her poetics, for her poems exude a capacious, theatrical sense of the voice in a poem being the mask that enables the imagination to work at full strength. It is more than coincidence that her first volume of poems is entitled Speaking Parts, but the reference in the title to the category of roles that one might audition for in theater should not be limited to a literal understanding. For just as Richard Wilbur's book title, The Beautiful Changes, proposes both an adjective noun and a subject predicate relationship of the key words, Beth Ruscio's Speaking Parts hints that speaking up does part the true from the false, the palpable from that which is idle illusion. Ruscio's poems depart from the day-to-day world of a boy on a pier, caught in the grown-up debacle of repressive existence, and illuminate the world that could be imagined, should we only have the courage to part with old ways of looking at the parts we think we have memorized for ourselves. It is said that actresses often find it difficult to get great parts to play as they age. Beth Ruscio has saved the best role of all for her finale, that of a poet who is only going to get better and better as the years go on. I present to you Beth Ruscio.
Holy Toledo. Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you. Let's see, Susanna, Lynn, Carolyne. Thank you also to Gary, Kim, and Susanna, who I just, Suzanne, I mean. I was so moved by everything that I completely rearranged my set. So I'm actually going to open, my set is, these are poems that speak to each other. So my set is going to open with a performance artist. This is for you, Suzanne. It's called Imaginary Memorial. Instead of a mausoleum, it's a performance art swimming pool. Jerzy Grotowski wears a gilded tricorn empanada on his head, bronzer on his face. Hair silvered and jet, he's vaguely musketeer. Kipping off the high diving board, he flubs a twisting dive, water slaps all over. If we all wore empanadas on our heads, goes his theory, our identities would be established on sight. Diablo, dulce, jamon. Fluent in salsa blanca, I'm used to larger bodies of water, he says, smoothing back his bangs, reservoirs, lakes, they're more my zone. Then Dad and Mom glide in that 8:30 gate, all grace, both restored to buoyancy, though they haven't swum in years. Late, as is their fashion for the funeral. How did you get here? The hug goes on so long that everybody dives. Ready for magic, says Mom, unusually amusable. First, she's pulling off evening gloves, then she's smoking and singing like Sinatra. We took La Cienega all the way. This poem is paired with, that's a poem from my next collection. This poem is paired with the poem in this collection, Speaking Parts. And you'll see why as soon as I find it. I loved, when I first started out, I loved the way authors would rifle through their books. I've got little notes here, so anyway, now I'm one of those authors with the book. Arachne's Lament. She Ubers home, somber, from yet another memorial. But the driver wants little kiss like bee sting, no charge. With a trime, she could trap, trick, and suck the life out of him. No more. Take me to the danker side, she mouths drowsily. Dropped off at her stop, she watches the bug gain traction on the gravel, pummeling her with jagged things. Comes the laugh track of the street, a honk honk and a frog croak and other moonless abscesses. Once she wore the garment, not the other way around. Now, absent-mindedly, she catches her silk mesh on a nail. Hello, cobwebs, she hails her hovel. She makes the best of it like other Black widows do, but it's loveless, settling for a defanged life, speaking in a small voice, mending gowns with spittle. This next poem comes from New York, where I was born. I've been part of many workplaces, and the wonderful introduction from Bill lets you know that I've been in, on sound stages, I've been in theaters, I've been in radio, but I also was a world-class waitress, or at least I was trying to be. I was a executive secretary to Modern Plastics magazine at the McGraw-Hill building in New York, and I detasseled corn. That was my first job. So lots of jobs I had to take to support myself as an artist, and I continue to welcome being in working places. And this is a restaurant in New York. German waitress at Off-Ross Banquet House, 1977. A fixture at Off-Ross for 30 years, Lorelei had fled her gutted fatherland by steamship from Manhattan, Island of Victors. I trailed her to learn tricks of the banquet waitress trade, a job routinely understaffed to maximize tips. She was a blur in a hurry, her calves rock hard from walking 8 miles a shift. Her strawberry blonde hair and pin curls she'd unclip after the setup work, the eyebrows she drew on bravely thick. A daringly Aryan serving girl, she bragged about her superior complexion, like peaches blushing in a kuchen. She taught by casually curt example how to measure up. To be banquet material, you had to be fearsome, but still fetching, hauling feasts on trays and crowds. You had to be light on your feet, parry the demanding, the famished, the lecherous, and toss it off with quick wit. You'll get your floor show when I'm good and ready. She seemed impervious to insult as she offered the other cheek. Get them fed and be quick about it. She liked to drill me under her breath. 2 winks and a dismissive swivel. Made for extra work to play hard to get. But look at her go, making the businessmen snap to and chuckle up in banquet rooms reserved for meetings, and there'd be Lorelei feigning to sit on their laps, making their napkins rise, spurning and inviting, feeding off the teas these men she'd spent her entire American life on, waiting, nothing but a serving wench to these merchants of Manhattan, whistling, then tapping their watches, snapping fingers for service. Then she'd load her arms with their dirty looks, balancing plates and monkey dishes, slippery with horseradish sauce, piled high with Long Island porgy bones, lobster carcasses, and pate studded with cigar butts. And one time in the pantry, sorting sweetened loaves and sugar cubes in silver bowls she'd shined to mirrors with her spit. Her usual smooth face mottled and splotched. She started exploding in German consonants in a voice savage enough to strafe a whole tray of cream puffs. The leitmotif for the evening, which included waitresses, by the way. Oh, and also, by the way, this is not a Hollywood star from the golden age, but I played Sylvester Stallone's daughter, unbelievably, and he is very short. He's like 5'7". So those are true facts for you to chew on. That poem that I just read is going to pair with the very last poem I read, but the next 2 poems I'm going to read have to do with the work of love. I've been married to my husband for decades and decades. We're going to have a huge anniversary this summer. And so these 2 poems speak to that. The first poem is called What They Don't Tell You About the Long Haul. Then late one afternoon, exhausted from trying to find agreement, we just take an impromptu nap, and for hours we rant in our sleep. Childless, we argue about the values toys taught us as kids. Beside the point, but lack of the tangible has become accusation. Poof. The length of all our married years minus what we have to show for it. For now, nothing is solid, unmooring us. This chill, cured only by proximity, snuggling, slouching towards closeness. Awake, and all is stark again, hard on the eyes, dimming our prospects, our senses. In this low-ceiling rented room, under the welcome mats and subfloor, countless secrets harden in us. Reclamation. My arms full of washed out peanut butter jars and other pampered recyclables, I'm mistaken for a mother by the trash man, although I may also be mistaken, for he is immaculate, appearing on the running board of a steamy blue truck on a Friday. Happy Mother's Day, he proclaims buoyantly, his voice raspy from talking over the grind of gears. A dirty job, hauling everyday empties away. And in return, he's joy, the kind of minister, unsullied. I don't correct him, handing over my cans and jars. I scrub them till they gleam like it's the first day of school. Okay, let's see. My next set is yes, housework, purgatoire. Purgatoire, Nevada. These, there's two poems here, Purgatoire, Nevada and Pacific Grove, California. And they were initially under the combined title 1890s Postcards Crossed in the Mail. Purgatoire, Nevada, wash day. No breeze, sister dear. Scrape one cake lye soap into boiling water, turn my head. Smoke drifts, dust. What a desert won't draw out of a body. Once believed I'd see mama again. Sort into piles, colors, breeches, rags, monthlies. Inside still tender. Whites soaking in bucking tub, set with salt, pour boiling from a height through wood ash, through grime, tar, blood, scrub, scrub, knuckles smart, fingers thorned, till I can't stand my own touch. For once, just let a stain be. Fetch fresh kettle of water, fresh, save the sweat dripping off my face, fresh, got a mouth on me. Fish out scalded whites, make do in a pinch, use a broomstick handle, rinse, starch, blue, pin sheets, out of sight, hang rags. Repeat after me, child. Make your bed in the morning and the day starts. Sorrow bleaches us. Pour rinse water in flower beds. Flowers know your worth. Sing morning, sing weak from heat, the devil vanquished, and a clean white smock. Pacific Grove, California, Ladies Sketch Club on the beach. To order light, dear sister, to wield a vest pocket clock and boss around the day is not considered women's work. Yet truly I live on scrapes of Prussian blue and gamboge crimson, go through tubes and tubes of bright lead white, the cruelest white for foam and spray and ocean, pinned down with my palette knife. I'm under a raucous spell of light and the sea swelling in me, the dried colors caked under my fingernails, all the proof I need. Let my smocks, neglected, yellow and gray, I don't care. Only let me wait out for the golden hour, see how it polishes even a crude thing like my sweat to a flushed glamour. It's not order, cleanliness, not our Father's God I serve. Behold my sin, like beach tar, whiskered blackly in sand and burnt umber. And my last poem is the other part of the duet that I started with German Waitress in the banquet house. This is a, excuse me, this has an epigraph. The theater is a place to which one goes less in the hope of complete illusion than in the hope of being only halfway disillusioned. That's an antique epigraph. It's from 1918. The saying, the house goes to half, means that the lights go to half. The house goes to half is the title of this poem. At places, excuse me. At places for the Sunday matinee, top of Act 2, the actress suffers. Her sweaty wig itches something terrible. The exit signs abruptly extinguish. The huge room closes in as if by massive descending cloak. Little squeals erupt, trilled off steam of expectation. The audience wants a carpet ride, or at least a small bonfire. In the wings, behind the drapes they call tormentors, she waits. She'll make the same down left cross from last night, 18 hours ago, and from the Saturday matinee, 6 before that, facing the matte side of the flimsy night scrim, the peeling stickum rind stars above her, the blue gelled backstage air tense, that certain end of the week tang wafting off Elizabethan costumes. And then, in a self-willed trance, the character's lofty thoughts commence to crowd out her petty cares again. To the thousand pinches submit, and what scabs for art she's obliged to pick 8 shows a week. On the hook for a 2-hour life, borrowed off the balance of her own, the words committed to mind, fine combed over for nuance, raveled, unraveled, rehearsed to sound composed, on the spot, pauses an eyebat long, pauses all the king's horses could ride through, her seasoned body an instrument of verse, channel for the precise note stranded in a long suppressed oh, and beneath sound, the felted silence, a stealth text, the prickly underpinning of for the whine of her character's charge. And I have borne and borne and borne and have been fubbed off and fubbed off and fubbed off from this day to that day. All of it said, never said never before this way. And again, she will enter all decked out, her every step all decked out. The follow spot will dog her every step, racking hot on the rising and falling of her lilac powder puffed chest. The Lico light will widen like a dilated pupil. The Fresnels will go full tilt. The combustion of all that pyrotechnic attention. Wow. For this one moment of the day, twice on Saturdays and Sundays, her rounded, ruddy face is a vision from which it will be impossible to look away. In her period corset, tight, vice tight, her voice strains. She's running out of air, so she will use it, this breathlessness, to sound whispery and coarse. Her pleasance has an edge. Effortlessness is 99% perspiration. All so that a lone woman's plaintive voice may insist to these listeners playing out past the rafters and beyond this little room's sweet spot. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Gary, Lilley, Kim Addonizio, Suzanne, Cleary, Beth, Ruscio. This has been a delightful afternoon on the West Coast, evening/afternoon of poetry, and fantastic reading. Again, we want to thank all of you, and we want to thank Bill for his service, and we're glad he's has a new role with West East. We want to let you know to look for our next event this summer. We'll announce on Facebook. And if you have friends who have missed the video, if you have friends who have missed the video, I will put it on YouTube either tonight or tomorrow, and I'll link to it on Facebook and email everyone, all the readers and the co-hosts, the link. And now I think to end, we should all unmute ourselves so that the readers can hear some actual real applause, you know, rather than just seeing.
Bravo! Bravo!
Yes, bravo.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful.